Hi, I'm Allick Delancy, psychologist working in the field of mental health and education. And today's topic is how to cultivate a growth mindset in the classroom. Now, keep in mind the statements made here are based on my personal views and or opinions, as well as research I will have done for this video. This video is based on my personal desire to bring to consumers the science behind mental health, behavior modification, and education. Again, the topic for today it is how to cultivate a growth mindset in the classroom. Now, before getting started, let's talk a little bit about what is a growth mindset. What is it actually? Well, the term was coined by Dr. Carol Dweck, and it is really the belief that ability and intelligence can develop through effort, learning, and perseverance. Again, the ability and intelligence of an individual can be developed through effort, learning, and perseverance. It is the opposite of a fixed mindset. So, a fixed mindset has to do with where a person might believe that their talents or their ability is actually set and there's nothing that they can do. No, and that is nothing they can do to actually improve. Now, here's a little on Dr. Carol Dweck. And Dr. Carol Dweck, also Carol Susan Dweck, was born on October the 17th, 1946. She is an American psychologist. She holds the Lewis and Virginia Eaton Professorship of Psychology at Stanford University. Dr. Dweck is known for her work on motivation and mindset. She was on the faculty at the University of Illinois, Harvard, and Columbia before joining the Stanford University faculty in 2004. Now, in the classroom, to assist students with a growth mindset, these are some of the things that a teacher can actually do. I will discuss three of them. One, encouraging effort over result. Two, speak of mistakes as part of learning, and three, encourage collaboration and peer learning. So let's talk about the first one, encouraging effort over results. Now, I know that there are a number of schools where the focus is really on results, not too much on effort, but what the student is able to actually get at the end of an exam or quiz, at the end of a project or something like that. So if the student scores an A, then that's great. There's a whole celebration around that. Now, nothing is wrong with a student scoring an A or something of that sort on an exam. That's actually quite commendable. But with the growth mindset, the focus is on praising effort and not just results. And I can see how this could actually be something practical because think about it. If a student went into an exam, maybe it was an exam involving multiple choice or matching, and the student was able to actually go into the exam, did not study, but actually came off victorious, got a A. No studying was done. And let's say the educator, the teacher, speaks highly about what that student was able to achieve in terms of the result. The student could get the kind of false idea that maybe I don't need to study, I could just go along and continue doing what I'm doing and I'll just pass exams. Of course, we know the truth of the matter is eventually there will be an exam or quiz or project that they will be met with and they will not be able to actually perform well, and that could crush them because they may have developed this uh, way of not studying for an exam, just going into the exam and hoping for the best. So, based on the growth mindset philosophy, what should be encouraged um, is effort over result. So we want to even if a student may have scored maybe a B or a C on an exam, they may actually study really hard. Now, the technique or the strategy they use may not have been the best one. They may have just read their notes over and over again and came into the exam. So they had a false sense of knowledge, walked into the exam, recognized that a number of the things that came, they really didn't know much about it or anything at all. Because they could not recall based on the method they used to study, just reading their notes over and over. So that could have been the issue, and not that they didn't put in the effort. So we want to praise them for what they did, but also guide them along as to the proper study technique the next time around. Also, too, with regards to encouraging effort over result, we want to reinforce the idea that success really comes based on dedication and spending a lot of time behind the subject matter, understanding the subject matter, being able to even teach the subject matter to someone else, probably even break down the subject matter in such a way that if you teach it to someone who is younger than you, they will get the sense of it. So, again, you want to promote in the classroom the effort over the result. Yes, we want to talk about the results, but not every student will be able to actually score an A on every class that we teach. We might be a really good teacher, but not all students will actually be able to score an A. You will have some students A, some students B, some students C. Some students may even put in a lot of effort but score even lower than a C. So we want to look at the effort so as to motivate that student to, with guidance to do better the next time around. The second area has to do with speak of mistakes as part of learning. Now, I know there are some schools where the focus is not on mistakes, perfection is what is strived after, and if a student makes a mistake, they can be penalized. Some students indicated to me that they made a mistake in a class, maybe a subject, a test, or something, and afterwards, how the teacher spoke to them, they really felt less of a person. But based on the growth mindset philosophy, we want to speak of mistakes as part of learning. So a student didn't perform well on a test, let's analyze it, let's break it down, let's see what went right, what went wrong, and what we can learn from this experience. A teacher can even indicate to a group of students or student as to how they made mistakes in the past. Because even though a teacher may be an expert in a subject matter, they're expert right now, but at one time they weren't an expert. And in a number of instances, some teachers who are expert in one or two particular subject matters, they're really not expert in all. So you can have another faculty member in another area, let's say chemistry, might set an exam for someone, let's say another teacher in the area of languages. And that teacher in language may not be able to pass that chemistry exam, or even though they may have acquired bachelor's degrees, graduate degrees such as master's degrees, or even in some instances they may be holding doctoral degrees, but they are not an expert in all areas. So failure is something that can happen to humans and does happen to humans. So the growth mindset in this case, as a classroom teacher, you want to help your students to recognize that, yeah, right now you're probably struggling with mathematics, you're probably struggling with English language, or probably literature or social studies, or something like that. At one time I too struggled, but this is what I did. Or I probably didn't have the struggles that you're having, but I know someone who did, and this is the path, this is the study technique they use, and this is how they were able to perform. So we want to speak of mistakes as part of learning. Let's talk about the third area. This has to do with encouraging collaboration and peer learning. Now, collaboration is really key to fostering a growth mindset. When students work together and share different approaches to a problem, they actually learn that everyone has unique strengths, has unique ability, and they have unique way of thinking. So the group is able to actually benefit. It's true that sometimes in a particular subject matter, a project might be given, and you put a group together, and the group might have some struggles in working collaboratively. Some students may not always pull their weight. Some students may prefer to work independently as opposed to working together, and that is a reality. However, based on the growth mindset, when you put students together, they are able, and they really, and you motivate them to work together, you encourage them to work together, you check up on them, you make sure that everyone has an opportunity to contribute. It may not be an equal opportunity, because some students may be really good at a specific part of the project. Some students may really struggle with it. Some students may not like it. You still want them, those who don't like it, you still want them to take part in the project, but at the same time, you recognize that maybe they may be better able to perform in another area as opposed to in this particular area, but it's just a requirement for the class, and therefore everyone needs to collaborate and work together. So those were the three areas that I wanted to talk about, as a teacher, how you can actually promote the growth mindset. The first one has to do with encouraging effort over result. The second one, speak of mistakes as part of learning. And the third one, could you recall what the third one is? It is encouraging collaboration and peer learning. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the criticism of the growth mindset, because it does present, comes with it, some criticism. Some researchers, they have looked at the work of um, Carol, and in doing research, in some instances, they came up with quite a number of limitations to the growth mindset. Now, we won't talk about all the limitations here uh, in this video, but I would like to two, talk about two of those limitations. The first one has to do with implementation challenges. According to even Dr. Duwick herself, she did acknowledge that translating the theory into classroom practice has been more complex than was actually anticipated. So the growth mindset is definitely, based on what we just discussed, the three areas, can be used in the classroom, but it can present some challenges when it comes to implementing it. Now, you might be able to say to students and really motivate them, get them inspired, believing that they can, with effort, with perseverance, they can actually improve. They can get brighter, smarter. They can actually become more talented, developing their abilities. Possibly, you might be able to do that, and you see those students take off. However, some of those students might actually not understand or know, or have the strategies to study, for example, so as to increase their performance in the classroom. So things like study techniques, mind castles, mind maps, how to use Pomodoro technique, how to use active recall, those might actually be a struggle, because the student doesn't know how to make proper notes, how to use Cornell notes, for example, bullet point notes, and as a result, it might be difficult. The student knows that they can get smarter, they can get brighter. They probably recognize that other students who uh, have bought in to the growth mindset are actually doing quite well, but they themselves may not know how to improve. And even the students who start doing well because of um, developing a growth mindset, I mean, in themselves, stumble upon study techniques that they didn't recognize, is actually well researched study techniques that they're using, and as a result, started to do better. So they are not able to actually say to the students who believe that they can do better, that this is how to do better. And if the teacher doesn't actually do that either, by saying to those students, this is the study techniques you can use. And it's not that you're dull or you're done, so you can't figure it out, but this is how you practice. This is the kind of effort, this is the kind of examples. Maybe it's a physics or mathematical problem or something like that. These are the strategies. This is how to think. Step one, step two, step three, step four, step five. This is how you actually get to the answer based on the problem you have before you. If that is not made available to them, they can actually struggle to implement the growth mindset and actually do better. The second area that I want to talk about has to do with cultural and contextual variability. So, what this means is that the success of the growth mindset interventions can actually vary and vary significantly depending on where the person is culturally or socioeconomic status can actually affect. So, for example, you can have a group of persons who the focus may not be on maybe school right now because the focus might be on making a living, trying to put food on the table, as opposed to actually settling down, studying, putting in effort in this particular domain. The focus might actually be on trying to support the family financially, and that's just based on the context. So yeah, they may actually recognize that the growth mindset is something that can help them to improve, but that's not their focus. School is not their focus right now, completing exams, completing projects, because they might have a legitimate reason why. You may also have a situation where a group of persons can perceive that they do not have the brain power or the ability as another group to succeed at a particular task, activity, or subject matter. And in spite of what the teacher may actually say to that particular group, they may not believe that they are capable of improving because they may say, okay, you know what? People who look like me, people who think like me, people who dress like me, we are not able to do what other persons who look completely different to us, behave different to us, are able to do. So that is where the fixed mindset is, as opposed to a growth mindset. Also, too, with regards to cultural context and and contextual variability, you can have persons' view of failure and success. So the growth mindset says, and this is another criticism, the growth mindset says that you can perform well with perseverance, with effort, um, just getting things done, developing a process and working at it, you could eventually start seeing success. Some cultures may not see academic success and failure as how others may see it. What do I mean? So, what I'm saying here is that sometimes you may have a certain culture that perceive failure more holistically. So they may not see failing an exam as the end of the world. That's not something to worry too much about. Uh, but if it is that the person is not a good person, they don't have a good attitude, and they're failing at that, then in spite of how brilliant you might be, if you are not a good human, then the reality is that's your failure in itself, as opposed to you probably having a really bad attitude and succeeding. So, person's perception of failure and person's perception of success can vary, and that is a criticism or a limitation. So, it doesn't matter how much effort you put in, if it is that you don't have a good attitude, then you're feeling as a human being. So, that's what the criticism basically is saying. So I think we have spoken a lot about the growth mindset here in this particular video, and let's conclude. So, by encouraging effort, embracing mistakes, and fostering collaboration, you as an educator, as a teacher, can cultivate a growth mindset in your classroom and empower students to reach their fullest potential. It's true that students in your particular classroom, based on the subject matter you might be teaching, they may have a particular preference for one subject over the other. But it is possible that as a teacher, you can motivate them, you can inspire them. So, What's your favorite strategy for promoting a growth mindset based on what we spoke about? Maybe you have another one. Um, Feel free to share those tips right in the comments. I'll read them. I'll respond. I really love to hear what you have learned, and collaboratively, maybe there's something you can help me to appreciate based on the growth mindset that I may not have covered in this particular video. And don't forget, of course, to like, subscribe, and to hit the notification bell. That's that's helpful. All right. So thanks for watching, and keep inspiring those minds that you're teaching every single day. Take care. Later.